Hi, I'm John Bein from Iowa Water and Waste Systems. We're out of Woodward, Iowa, and what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be walking you through the maintenance on one of our systems, from checking out the septic tank to what we need to clean and measure as far as the system is concerned. This is kind of an overview of the system, how everything is put together here. This is the clean out coming out of the house. The 4-inch sewer line comes probably about 6 or 7 feet this way. And then it goes right straight into the tank. This is the influent compartment of the tank. This is a 2-compartment, 1,500-gallon tank. This pod actually sits crosswise on. The effluent comes through to the inlet side, just like any other tank. And then when people are using water inside the house, it then comes across the partition wall to the effluent side where our component riser is. And it's programmed into the control panel to dose the system with we have a 1/2 horse 30-gallon-a-minute pump. At every 20 minutes that kicks on and pushes about 12 gallons of water through the distribution network that you saw earlier. If the people aren't using any water in the house, there's 100% recirculation back into the second compartment. If, however, they are using water, say at night when everybody comes home from work or in the morning, when those balls come up in that recirculating splitter valve, the next time that the pump kicks on, it'll force it out to discharge. Now here we're discharging out to a ditch. The nice thing about it is not discharging all the time, but again, only when people are using water. Like any other system, you have to come around and check on it every once in a while and do the operation and maintenance to keep things running properly. Because of all the screws, it's just about a have to have a battery-powered drill to remove those and then put them back in. It's a good idea to have a garbage can with a liner. You need a clipboard and a form to fill out. Always got to have the gloves. You'll need like a vice grip or a wrench or something to get access to and remove the quick disconnect on the pump and on the in the pod itself. And then you also need the number 12 wire to unplug any of the orifices. Also, I just use a bottle brush on a fiberglass fish tape to clean out those distribution lines. And then the last is my, I guess the scum and sludge checker that I use. And it's a good idea to have an array of tools, because you never know. You need small screwdrivers for the panel. Probably should have a circuit tester if you ever run into any problems. Typically we don't put that on there unless we're dealing with a problem and have to do some troubleshooting. One of the first things we do when we come onto a site to do the service on our system is take a look at the control panel. Now what we're looking for in here is the LED lights to show whether we're in high water mode or what the condition is there. And those are the lights right here. See, this one on is showing the redundant off is in the up position, so the system is working. Really, before we get into checking the wires, which we want to make sure that everything's tight and that sort of thing, we do shut down the power on the system. And so we want to make sure that these wires that are hooked into these terminals are all tight, and because occasionally on installation they didn't tighten down as much as they should, and so that's one of the things that we want to look at there. Also, we're checking out for any burnt wires or any of the components of this control panel right here, and everything seems to be fine with this one. So we're opening up the lids on the risers here to the system. And the things that we're looking for here are the same things that we're going to look for in any other on-site system as far as the tank is concerned. Okay, I'm going to open up this lid. And the system looks pretty good. One of the things that we're always going to be looking at as we open this up is, are you getting any smell? Do you see a lot of gray or black material on top of the sheets? We also look right here at this insulation right here, and that gives us an idea of whether all the orifices are working or whether they're plugged up. And so we'll come back to this a little bit later as we start the cleaning on that part. Now we're opening up the component riser here where the pump vault is. And again, it's just to kind of get a feel of what's going on with the system. This will be a situation we'll be coming back here again and taking a look at this further. The reason that we turned off the power earlier is that we'll be disconnecting the pump and doing some other work with the floats and that sort of thing in there. How we determine the levels of the scum and the sludge in the tank is just a matter of resistance. We just have an elbow here with a short leg that we put into the tank, and so we can figure out how much scum is there. And then the bottom we have gradations here in 1 inch, so we know exactly how much sludge we're dealing with in the bottom of the tank. Next thing we're going to do is check the sludge and the scum levels in the tank. Now here we don't have a lot of scum, but this is how we check. If there was a lot, we'd just feel that resistance and determine the depth of that, and we do the same thing with the sludge on the bottom. Okay, there we go. And we got about 7 or 8 inches of sludge in the bottom. The reason this is important as far as checking the scum and the sludge level is to determine when you're going to need to pump the tank. Now in this situation here we have about 8 inches of sludge in the bottom. They don't have any scum. When the sum of the amount of sludge and the scum, when that equals 30% of the total liquid depth or more, that's the point in time you're going to need to pump the tank. So it is very important every time that you come out to do service on any system, really, make sure that you check that sludge and scum level. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to pull out the effluent screen. And along with that effluent screen is our float tree. And so we just snap that off, kind of leave it off to the side here for now. So we're taking out the effluent screen here, and one thing that we found is that you get a pretty good idea if this thing is full and needs to be cleaned out just by the weight of it. Okay, and we're taking this over to the primary side of the septic tank. Okay, and usually what we do is we'll sit it right on the inlet T. It's a place to hold on to it. Okay, so we just wash out this filter here, and it takes a little while. It's always surprising how much lighter this thing feels after you clean it up a little bit. Now that we clean the effluent screen, we're going to take it back to the component riser. The main reason we shut off the power is one of the things that we do as far as cleaning items here is we'll clean the pump. And so at this point in time I'm going to unscrew this for a quick disconnect. So we're disconnecting the pump from our quick disconnect there. And we'll pull this up. And the important thing here, you know, you get a lot of stuff around the pump itself, but you need to get this screen cleaned off is the most important thing when we pull this out. Okay, that's about it. Okay, then we just put it back in the hole. And we'll reattach the connection there. And I'll make sure these floats are cleaned up best we can, so there's not any problems as far as their function. What I'm going to do is activate these and watch up at the panel to make sure that the lights are coming on. This bottom float, which we're making sure is activating, is called a redundant off float. That has to be on for the system to work. The pump won't even work if this is not turned on. The second float that we're activating is the override timer. This system normally doses every 20 minutes. When this float is up, it's every 10 minutes. The last float is the high water float, and that will sound an alarm. The default is for the pump to run for 2 minutes to try to lower that level. If that doesn't happen, this float does not drop, the alarm will go off. Next, we're going to pull out the recirculating splitter valve to make sure everything is working properly with that. And this is how the system decides when it's going to discharge. When the water level comes up, it seats on that grommet. Next time the pump kicks on, it'll force it out to discharge. So we're just going to wash up these balls here a little bit. Again, kind of the same reason that we did that with the floats, just to make sure that they're moving properly. I'm just cleaning out the connection here again, so we don't have any problems as far as the flow not coming through. And I'll actually shoot it down from the top. But that all looks pretty good. And so we're going to replace this at this point in time. Okay, back in position. Okay, we're going to put this effluent screen back in. All right, here we're going to replace the float tree, and it slides right back into the locking mechanism. And you can see right here on the side that it only goes down so far, and then that's it. And it's important to make sure that it's in there, because there are specific depths that we set the floats at based on the size of the tank and the manufacturer of the tank. And then we'll slide it back in the hole. And you always need to make sure that you get that effluent screen all the way to the bottom. We have run into guys that think, well, it's close enough, and they'll stop, but for the same reason that it's important that the floats maintain those settings, is important for the effluent screen to go all the way to the bottom of the pump vault. Now what we're going to do is we'll tie up these float cords. What we're doing here is just zip tying these cords to, or tying them to the top of the float tree,
just so they don't get in the way of the floats. Okay.
We're switching on the pump to manual just to make sure that everything's tied to our union and we got no leaks in here. Now the spray that you see down here is a weep hole, so when the pump turns off, the water will run back into the riser here, so it won't freeze. Next thing we're going to look at is the pod. We'll be washing this down, and then we'll take the whole distribution network off so we can clean down the sheets better. At this point in time, I'm going to just start washing off the orifice covers. Anyway, what I like to do is just kind of wash down a little bit in between the distribution lines here and the orifice covers. One of the things we look at as we're cleaning this off is whether they're using a lot of grease in the house, that sort of thing. That will actually show up on the, in spite of having the effluent screen there, it'll actually show up on the sheets. And so that's something that we then will have to address with the homeowners. So in this setting right here, from what we see, don't have any grease. This is just the normal biomass that we expect to see build up. But it'll be pretty obvious if your customers are putting a lot of grease down the system. And as I said, that's something that has to be addressed. If it's a situation where the people won't go along with that, then you're just going to have to come out more often to do service on the system. So the next thing we're going to do is disconnect our universal joint here. Okay. We're going to take the whole distribution network. And then we'll finish up with the cleaning. As you're cleaning these off, that you don't use too high a pressure, because in time you'll kind of undo the weave of the textile filters and may someday have to look at replacing them. But typically, if you're using just a garden hose like this, you aren't going to have any problem that way. And we've not really run into a situation where we've had to replace these yet. We're going to pull out a couple of these sheets here just to make sure that things are moving, that there's not a big buildup on the bottom here. What we're doing is checking in here to make sure that there isn't any large buildup of material down at the bottom, and to make sure that this return piping is flowing properly, which it is. Again, you're going to see other problems. You're going to see a lot of buildup on the sheets and that sort of thing, even before you take these sheets out, to see problems. But we have run into them actually, that there was so much of a buildup that the return line where it comes out of the pod was plugged up. So at this point in time, we'll put these sheets back on. There you go. Okay. Now after we bring this in, we always have to get these orifice covers all kind of lined up again. What we're going to do now is just brush out the insides of the distribution network. And we're using just simply a bottle brush. I got it attached to a fiberglass fish tape here. We're going to put this into test mode, and when we do at the control panel, when we do that, the system will charge every few seconds and then turn off and back and forth. And so after we cleaned it out with that brush there, now we're flushing them out with, as I said, putting this into test mode. There we go again. Okay. And so as we wait for them, for the wire to turn clear on each one of them, and then we shut them off. One of the last things we do with the system is make sure that all the orifices are not plugged and that we're getting good flow out of each of them. We see one right here that's plugged up, and basically we just use some wire to stick in there to clean it out, and we're back in business. So we just go all the way down and check each of them and make sure that we don't have any plug problems. And really, I mean, all I'm using is a piece of number 12 wire to stick in there to unplug it. One of the added extras when we have this in test mode, this is kicking on every few seconds, is you leave the lid off of the component riser, and you can hear that water running back into the recirculating splitter valve, and so you know that we don't have any pluggage problems in that 2-inch line that goes from the pod back to the component riser. And next thing we do is we take it out of test mode. And one thing to keep in mind with these systems is if you want for some reason to leave it in test mode, it'll automatically kick out after 30 minutes. And there's the chirp telling it's out. Now we'll put the lids back on. Okay, that's it.